Okay guys, so now that we have our buttonholes made on our cowl here, what I want to do is show you guys how to sew on buttons. Now, sewing on buttons isn't as daunting as you may think. First of all, you're going to want to decide on the buttons that you want to use. Here I have some odd buttons. I bought this like 20 pack long ago from eBay, and those are what I have. I love using those for these face masks. They add a different little touch to the project. Next, you're going to need needle and thread. Now for today's tutorial, I'm going to use this white, it's like jean top threading, if I'm not mistaken. I'll link something similar to this down and below. It's by Coats, it's dual duty, and yeah, it is top stitching. So what I want to do is, or what I have done rather, is thread my needle. Now you can use any type of needle if you want. There are needles with bigger eyes, so if you have like vision problems or anything like that, those would probably be more helpful for you guys in this case. But I have already threaded this beforehand, and I just want to pull a pretty long piece of thread because I don't want to have to rethread it later. I mean, to each his own. Okay, and I'm going to snip my yarn off from the spool and just toss it over there to the side. So what we want to do first, before we get to sewing on our button, is knot the end. So you can make sure that your thread is evened up at the end of it, like so. And then what I'm going to do is get a little condensation from my water bottle off to the side. And I'm just going to like what I like to do is roll my two thread down once I do that, and then I'm gonna wet my hand again, and I'm just going to wrap the thread around my finger and roll the end of it down my finger until I can pull a loop and knot it. Okay, and I'll probably be making a tutorial on this in the future. I know this is kind of weird to see with white yarn, so I'm just gonna snip that off. In the meantime, there are other tutorials that have this instruction with different background. Alright, so I chose white, but you can literally match your project with any thread color you'd like. White was just my preference for this one. I thought it would add a nice little odd touch to it. Alright, so I'm going to take out my stitch markers, and I'm going to make sure that I am marking my spot where I want my buttons properly. So I have my little guy like this already. Now my buttonholes right here, they're lined up with the other side of my work, and I'm just going to start off with this first one right here. And I'm going to place this button directly below the buttonhole, and we are going to proceed to sew him on. So once I get that placement down, I'm going to make sure that my fabric is in fact straight. I'm going to turn my light down just a little bit. Maybe it'll be easier to focus on. Okay, and what I will do, I'm going to be sewing an X on this button. So I'm going to straighten it up like this, and then I'm going to hold it to my fabric, and I'm going to come through the back, and I'm just going to push my needle through where the button was, and I'm going to pull my thread until that knot is tugging at my fabric like that. Okay, so that's nice and secure. Now I'm going to, from back to front, thread my needle through one of the buttonholes. Okay, and now I'm going to work diagonal or cat a corner from this buttonhole. And I wonder if I can zoom in just a wee bit more. So I'm going to be working into this one, and I'm just going to insert my needle straight down until I come out the other side, like so. And I'm gonna pull and pull and pull until it's snug, just like so. Okay, and now I'm going to come back up from the back through that same, oops, first hole that I came through. Okay, and now I'm going to go back into that same diagonal hole. And because this is yarn, it doesn't really, and we have such a small buttonholes on these, or button eyes, sometimes I call them eyes. Because we have such small eyes, you can't really tell how close you are to the inside of that button thing, but you should really be trying to aim for as close to the little edge of those rounds as you can. And that goes with any kind of button sewing, but maybe I'll make a tutorial on it in the future. That would be great. And I'm going to do it one more time because I'm paranoid. As you guys know, I like to go overboard just a little bit. But okay. Now that's nice and snug through there. And I'm going to come back down here, through here one more time. And I'm going to pull my threads just to make sure that everything is nice and snug and there's no odd loops coming up from my hole. Now that I've gone through the back of this again, I want to start doing the same in these opposite button eyelets. So I'm going to come through the back with my needle again, and I'm going to go through that bottom, go through that bottom eyelet, and now I'm going to go to that one that's catty corner right here. I'm going to go down, and I'm going to go out through the bottom. And again, because it's yarn, because it's this specific type of yarn, it's easy to get these little stray loops when you're sewing thread through here. So just make sure that you're going back and double checking that before you continue threading your needle. Also with this one, I think I'm using an upholstery needle, so that made my life a little bit easier. I'm getting those weird loops again, so I'm just gonna make sure they're being pulled. So if you're using the same top stitching that I'm using, your button's going to be super sturdy, because first of all, the top stitching is super thick, and then the fact that we're going over this 3 times each, you should be really confident in the security of your button. I'm coming through here for the last time. Alright. And going down. Alright. Now I'm going to show you how to do the shank. So what I want to do with my needle is I'm going to come back up through my fabric, but I'm not going through any of the button eyelets. So literally just coming up. And what I want to do is I want to make a shank. Now the whole purpose of that is so that when you put your button through the buttonhole, there's no struggle. Like, and also it makes it more secure, and like the more wear and tear you put on it, it won't just immediately snap off of there. So I'm going to, what I like to do is wrap my thread around the base of that button, kind of tugging on it, not too tight but not too loose either, about 3 or 4 times. That's 3, and then that's 4 for me. Okay, and turning this to the side, you can actually see the little shank right there. And what I like to do is just thread my needle straight through the shank. Now if you did it too tight, you might struggle with it, but you should be able to pretty much effortlessly glide straight through the other side of that and just pull your yarn snug. Alright, now you realize you have this raised button here, which is great. This is exactly what you want. So once you've threaded it through the shank, what you're going to do is very close under that button, you're going to insert your needle into your fabric and bring your thread back down. Oops. Now these loops are just part of that initial knot that I did, but if you feel like you've messed up at this point, you can either rip off your button or you can insert your needle underneath all those loops, and we're going to knot it simply by doing that, and that creates a loop. We're going to insert our needle through that loop, either way, and we're just going to pull it snug. And you can do this a couple times to make this more secure, and then in the end what I do is that I use freight check. Alright. And I do actually have my freight check bottle over here. Running low though, I need to get more. Alright, and I just put a little dab. A little dab will do, use just like white glue. Don't want to use too much. But what it'll do, it'll dry, it'll harden, and it'll secure that threading in place. I love using freight check for all of my knit and crochet projects, as well as my little mini sewing projects, because it gives me that little added sense of security. Not sponsored, but hey, that could be a possible thing in the future. Okay, so now that we've done that, if you over threaded your needle, you should have plenty of thread left on your needle to do your second button. So you can go ahead and, I'm going to zoom out some. Okay, so you can go ahead and fold your fabric back over, and you can test out your button if you want. Mine's just fine. Went through there nice and easy. There was no like picking up or flicking at the button to get it to come through the buttonhole. So now what I want to do is my second button. I'm going to do that one off camera, and I'll meet you guys back once I am done. Okay, and I have just finished sewing on my second button, and I'm adding my free check here. And now I finally can do the last of this project. Alright, so it's done. It's done. As long as you're done weaving in your ends and all that, you have successfully made the Frost Fighter face cowl. Now you can test out your buttons, which I'm going to do. 1 and 2. And I have completed it. So if anything, from this point you could choose to block the project, or you can just leave it as is. I think it's interesting when you let it wear naturally. I've I had blocked one that I made for a friend, and then another one I let them just kind of wear it, and I also made it with a different material, and it made for a really interesting outcome over time. It's really cool. So hopefully you enjoyed this little project. I hope to do more of these in the future. Thank you for sticking it out to the end with me. If you enjoyed this video series, don't forget to thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on awesome content like this. The more, I guess, in demand my crochet and knit alongs become, the more I'll do them. Yeah, I know I've been wanting to implement some additional like project tutorials this year, and yeah, this I guess is the first one of them. Don't forget also, if you want the written pattern for this project, it is available over on my Etsy page. Forgot how much it is, but my Etsy page is linked down in my description below. Don't forget to check out my other social media. I'm on pretty much everything except for Snapchat. And until next time, guys, happy making.